welcome back to the channel. New month, new tier list. So if you're unfamiliar, I'm going to be ranking all of the books I read in September on order of how much I loved it. We're using the Harry Potter ranking scale, so it's O for outstanding, E for exceeds expectations, A for acceptable, which in the end I enjoyed the book. Poor, self-explanatory, dreadful self-explanatory, troll means I weep for our future. Let's get started. I've been a subscriber to Owlcrate for about 5 or 6 months now, and I kind of started falling behind in the books. I open the boxes, do a little unboxing video, and then put the book on my to-read shelf and just never get back to it. So this month I made sure that I caught myself all the way up. So we have, right off the bat, 3 Owlcrate books. Each one of these has a exclusive cover to Owlcrate and they are signed. So let's start off with this month's book. So September's Owlcrate book. This is Horrid. We follow the story of a teenage girl and her mother as they move back to their mother's hometown. However, when the teenager gets there, she realizes pretty quickly that the entire town has a secret involving her. This is a little bit of a horror book, as you can kind of tell from the cover there. There were moments it was spooky, I will admit that, and in all, I say it exceeded expectations. Next one we have... Next up, we have Star Daughter. Our main character is half star. Her mother came from above, and she is coming of age, and her star powers are kind of kicking in. She ends up injuring her father, having to go upstairs and then trying and get all of the star people to save her father. This one essentially just felt very convoluted. It had me asking why a lot regarding the main character's decisions. I will say that the setting and the culture in this book was really well done. I liked that. It's just the plot that really fell through for me. And I would say, honestly, dreadful. Okay, so the next one we have is Goddess in the Machine. 1,000 years ago, the main character was put in a cryo tank with the idea of her settling on a new planet once Earth kind of goes to crap. And she's woken up and she realizes she's being thought of as a goddess, and she has to try and convince the entire world she is a goddess, otherwise death. And I did feel like it was longer than it needed to be. That being said, the actual story itself, I said it exceeded expectations. There are definitely moments where I was convinced I knew where it was going, and then it took me in a completely different direction, and I loved it for that. The next one was sent to me by the authors, and it's Princess Rose and the Quest for the Golden Crown. So Princess Rose was raised in the castle, wonderful, idyllic childhood, and then she has this kind of coming of age ceremony and is sent on a quest with a map, a talking horse, and the stable boy. Now she has to figure out how to manage this quest with absolutely no direction and also try and become the leader her country needs. This is a middle grade book and it was absolutely lovely. I loved the characters. I loved just the way the adventure was formulated. The side characters were really fun. I would say I'm going to throw it up at outstanding because it was just very endearing, and I'm really happy to have had the chance to review it. Next one I have is The Mystery of Mrs. Christie. So one of the greatest mysteries, and this is talking real life here, Agatha Christie disappeared for, I think it's 12 days, a little over a week at least, and then she came back and she had no memory of where she went. And she claimed amnesia up until her death, but no one actually knew what happened to her. So this book is a fictional take on what the author thinks is very likely to happen. I really enjoyed watching Agatha Christie's character develop, because she really started as a kind of a meek, kind of a wallflower sort of character, and then she creates her own personality from there. However, I will say that the ending was a little bit of a letdown. I feel like with an author like Agatha Christie and those cleverly crafted books, there's this expectation of at the end. But I just kind of went, oh, makes sense. So because of that, I'm going to put it down as an acceptable. This one was also sent to me from Sourcebooks Landmark. I think I have a few other Sourcebooks ones here as well. So let me just pop that up. Black Widows. We follow the lives of 3 wives. 3 wives of 1 man. Their husband ends up dead, and all the fingers point to one of the 3 wives. But which one did it? This book in general, I would say it definitely exceeded expectations, and like the ending, I think put it into outstanding for me. I loved how well developed the 3 wives were in this book, and I really enjoyed the not knowing. I feel like I was constantly kept on edge. I didn't know who to believe. Every time I swapped perspectives, I thought the another wife did it. And next up we have the Netgalley books. So let's go with Secret French Recipes of Sophie Valroux. I don't know how to say the last name. I took Spanish in high school. Sophie has always wanted to be a Michelin-starred chef. She knows the odds are stacked against her until her ex-boyfriend completely sabotaged her, got her thrown out of her current restaurant, and blacklisted in the American restaurants. Tail between her legs, she decides to go back to France, only to find out that her dear grandmother is sick and pretty close to death. She realizes her grandmother's chateau is open again, and it's trying to get its feet off the ground as a amazing place to go enjoy a meal. Sophie has to decide whether or not she's going to pull herself up and run this business or continue wallowing. This book was really good. I loved the way Sophie developed. And it was subtle and it was slow, but it also was just the right pace. I also love the way they talked about food in this one. I mean, to be fair, like most of the recipes mentioned in here, I had no clue what they were. I was like, I've got no frame of reference for what this tastes like, but it sounded pretty neat. I say this one exceeded expectations. The Silent Wife. Oh, I got a Netgalley copy of this one. I also got a physical copy, so kind of double dipped there. But when I picked it up, I had no idea that it was actually the 10th book in a series. However, the author does a good job of like kind of catching you up on the social drama that happened before, and then just focusing on the current story. As far as the story in this one, it's told across 2 time periods. There's the past where they discover a few teenage bodies, and then there's a current when they realize that those teenage bodies is actually the work of a serial killer, and it's been 10 years that this serial killer has been allowed to go unchecked. So they're racing against time to try and actually catch the serial killer before they go to ground. I thought it was really good. It was really a compelling read, and I think it definitely exceeded expectations. Down comes the night. In this world, there are 3 nations. 2 have magic, 1 does not. And the 2 that have magic have been at war for pretty much ever. In this one, our main character, she has healing magic, and the main character has to choose between going back to the Abbey and essentially being like shut away, or responding to the 3rd kingdom, the one without magic, about healing one of the members of the castle. She obviously takes the 2nd route, and then discovers that this patient actually happens to be the worst person on the other side's army, like the one who leads a lot of the battles and has killed thousands of others. Yeah, that's the guy she's supposed to heal. This book, I say, definitely exceeded expectations. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the relationship between the 2 characters. In Wench, our main character was informally adopted by the owner of a bar. And she spent her entire childhood and teenagehood taking care of this bar. She can break up any bar fight. She knows the best ale. She can make you a splendid meal. However, when her adopted father passes away, she realizes that he never actually gave her ownership of the bar. And by Queen's order, it gets taken away. Well, there's nothing for her to do except for leave everything she's ever known and march her way up to the castle and get her bar back. I loved the main character of this one. I loved the concept, and the plot actually went completely different from where I expected. I thought it was just going to be literally her on a journey to go get her bar back. But there was so much more that went into this book that made it outstanding to me. Winter of the Wolf. So in this one, our main character, Bean, yes, that's her real name, that's her full name, idolized her brother Sam. And then he kills himself. And then this whole book is pretty much her trying to prove that it wasn't a suicide. So I did like how the grief was showcased, and I did like the way the emotions were done. For the most part, it felt genuine. However, there were a few things that took me out of this story. First of all, she was obsessed with her brother. I mean, like, to put this into perspective, I like my sister a lot. I would say I love her a ton, but I don't have every waking thought be about her. And that is what Bean was regarding Sam. From the very moment she was introduced, every single flashback, it's always Sam, 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 Sam. It got a little bit annoying. Also, after he died, she really berates her mother for her mother being weak, for her mother being horrible, for her mother being lazy, etc., etc. All because mom wouldn't wash the laundry, mom wouldn't make any meals, and it was all forced to be Bean to do it. Which I feel like communication is a thing. Bean could have very easily have just told everyone, hey, I can't do this all on my own. You need to step up and you need to step up. But no, she just decides to on her mom the entire time. And finally, and I don't want to give this totally away, but when you find out the cause behind his death, I felt like that was just such a letdown. It had so much potential to be like a soul-shocking moment, to shatter that image of her brother and completely remake it. And it was just kind of like, yeah, this is it. And everyone's like, cool. And I'm like, really? That's it? That's all we're going to do here? So because of that, I honestly, yeah, I'm going to put it down as troll. Crazy, stupid bromance. This is the third book in the Bromance book club. The concept of this book club is literally these bros, these super macho guys, are reading romance books so they become better people. We have a ex-hacker plus the owner of a cafe, and they kind of had a thing for a while, but they never ever made the move. And the two of them start leaning on each other, and you can just tell that they're going to be fit. But he doesn't know the right moves to make, hence the Romance book club. For this one, I say exceeded expectations. It was definitely better than the second one. Not as quite as good as the first one, but I did like this upward tick of the series. The Black Flamingo. Mike, he has always known he was gay, but he also doesn't know where he fits. Like, he tries out all these different personalities and all these different ways of interacting with himself and his sexuality, and then he kind of settles on drag and then finds a way to make the drag his version of it. I think it was pretty good. The audiobook was very well read, and I was really enjoying this story. To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. This one is Christopher Poloni's latest book, and it's set in space. No, there aren't any space dragons as much as I wanted it to be. I already did a long video review for this one, so I'm just going to pop it up at standing. If you want to check out the video review, I'll link it down below. Next up, we have Thorn and Latch. These two ones were sent to me by the author. Actually, this one, they were both sent to me by Anella Dean. Then the author of Thorn saw my review, and then she sent me book 2, which I'm excited about. These ones, I did do a video review for them. This is a Goose Girl retelling. This one is a locksmith and the embodiment of death going on adventures. Both of them, I would say, outstanding. Only mostly devastated. Ollie in this one, he spent all summer in this town, the same town as his aunt and uncle and cousins, and he fell in love with this gorgeous boy. And then he had to move back. But then his aunt's cancer takes a turn for the worse, and his whole family ends up going back there, and he ends up seeing the guy from the summer again, but that guy is closed off. I love the character of Ollie. He was so neurotic. I don't know if that's the right word, but he just overanalyzed everything, and that was so endearing. The love of this one was really good too. I would say exceeded expectations. Well met. This one fulfilled that aching gap of Renaissance fairs because I wanted to go to one all summer and like nothing was happening. So in Well Met, the main character, her niece wants to volunteer at the local Renaissance fair. Niece is too young to go alone, so she wants to be a cool aunt and go anyway. However, while she's there, she ends up bumping into the owner, maybe coordinator is the better word, the coordinator of the Ren Fair, and immediately he does not like her. He does not think that she is taking anything seriously, that she does not deserve to be there, etc., etc. The two of them kind of circle each other, and they circle each other, and you know how it's gonna go. I would say outstanding because it really did hit that nostalgia for Ren fairs, and I miss those Ren fairs. White Fang, Jack London. Reread this absolute classic. This one follows the story of White Fang. He is a wolf dog, and it just chronicles his life from abuse to misuse to love. And if you haven't read it, I think it stands the test of time like really, really well. I enjoyed it. So I'll put it up as exceeds expectations. Rayne and Delilah's Midnite Matinee. It's all about these two teenage girls who go by Rayne and Delilah. They have their own like kind of goofy television show where they comment and they do little skits in between parts of like really bad B movies. And then they have a chance to make it big. And this is the one and only chance they have. First of all, the author, I don't think the author did a good job of getting inside a teenage girl's head. With the way they interacted, with the way they texted each other, it just didn't feel real to me. And also there's quite a few things that happen in this book that I kind of was left going, why? Why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense. I got kind of mad with the characters. I'm like, what are you doing here? Why are you making these poor decisions? And ultimately, that's what put it down as dreadful for me. Ruthless Gods. Ruthless Gods. This one was the second book of, I can't remember the first one. Wicked Saints. There we go. So second book of the Wicked Saints series. Wicked Saints. That one took me like months to read because I was so annoyed with it. So much time spent trying to establish their world where like I was just like, you could have told me in 2 sentences and I would have been completely fine with it. Ruthless Gods, since the world is established, it actually, I would say it's better than the first one. It wasn't like mind-blowingly awesome, but it was good. I'm going to keep it as acceptable. Ones I'm currently reading Dark Shores and The Tales from the Hinterland. So Dark Shores, honestly, the beginning of it was kind of poor. Like the first 25 pages, first 50 pages, it was a bit rough for me. I think it's just because like they throw you into this world and you're given a lot of details that really don't pan out. Like it was over detailed in the beginning. Once you get into like the story where you get to interact with the characters and watch that grow and develop, it got a lot better. Right now, I'm going to put it as acceptable just because I'm about halfway through and that beginning was so poor that I was just kind of like, Tales from the Hinterland. Now for this one, so I'm a huge fan of Melissa Albert and the Hazelwood book series. Okay, so in the Hazelwood, it's based off of scary fairy tales, and you're given excerpts between the first book and the second book. Tales from the Hinterland takes those excerpts and turns them into short stories. So this is like scary fairy tales. It was gorgeous. This was, I actually got the copy from Netgalley. And right now, it's outstanding. I'm sure it's going to pan out that way. I really wish the author would have had like an illustrated, like an oversized version that had like illustrations in it and it was like hardcover, and I would have bought that in a heartbeat. But that being said, the stories itself is pretty darn good. So that's it. That's what I have so far this month, September. And honestly, it was a pretty good month. There was like 3 duds and the rest were pretty decent. So all in all, I am quite happy with the way this month turned out. Thank you so much for watching and happy reading. Bye.